Hey, welcome back to the Small Business Mindset. I get this question a lot, and I get it a lot from actually women, more so than men. How do I build wealth? That's the question on all of our minds. How do we start our lives, start our financial lives, continually build something so we have something at the end of our lives, or honestly, quite sooner? We want to achieve wealth sooner. I'm glad my dog Luke has joined us for this podcast. If those of you that are watching on YouTube can see him in the picture, so thanks, Luke. But as we think about wealth, I'm going to talk about three things of how you can build wealth right now. It's easier than you think. And I bet there are tools in your life or things that you're already doing that are getting you on that path. But more importantly, I want to make sure you're doing the right things so that you are growing wealth faster in a more productive environment. And you're thinking about those things that are probably already in your periphery right now. So let's get started. I had a mentor tell me a number of years ago that you should always focus on three areas of income. Three areas of income. You're like, well, where's that going to come from? What do I need to do? One area of income should always be your primary job. Where's your paycheck coming from? Do you have a normal day job? Do you have something that provides you with a regular set of income? So that's kind of your main income. Secondly, you should always have some form of long-term savings. Now, this might come in the form of retirement income. Maybe you participate in your employer's 401k. Maybe you have a Roth IRA or some other kind of long-term savings. So then when you are done working, you have something out there when you for later in life to help support your life. So that's number two. And the third one, which is the one I think everyone's interested in, is passive income. So what is passive income? I had someone that called it a long time ago mailbox money. Passive income is income that you create in your life where literally the checks just show up in the mailbox or show up in your bank account without you having to do a whole lot. Now, that might mean you have to put in work in the front end. You have to do the research. You have to set up the course. You have to make the product. But then you put it on autopilot. And in a lot of worlds, this has to do with being an evergreen concept, meaning you do the work up front and it just sells and sells and sells, and it produces income day after day, month after month, year after year. So it's a touch point that doesn't have to happen all the time, but can happen continuously throughout your life, and you can grow upon it. So how do we create this passive income? I guess that's the biggest question. Well, if do you have a special talent or a skill? Do you have the capacity to create a product, to produce something, to maybe you're an artist, a graphic designer, maybe you're a creator, you're a carpenter. Is that something that you have time to do on the side? So outside of your day job, so you're not just counting or pulling back from paying your bills every day, but do you have time or an area of expertise or a love for something, a hobby even? You're like, I could make a little more money and it's not that hard for me because it's more enjoyable than anything. I have plenty of people in my life that have fantastic hobbies, not necessarily to say they want to monetize them, but absolutely could. If it's something you're going to do anyways, could you put that into practice and make some money at it? The second thing, could you sell something online? Now, in our knowledge based society and our very interactive, connected online world, and you're listening to me in an online environment right now, could you sell something of value in an online environment? Could it be something that you produce a course? Could you monetize a podcast? Could you design an ebook or a pamphlet or something that somebody could download? If you watched my podcast recently, I had a guest on, Kelly Higgins, who owns Elevated Agent. She created an online platform to sell her designs. What a marvelous way to create an income. Now that's turned into her full-time income, but I think it probably started as a passive income source for her. And she's found a way to build upon it and grow it. And the last thing I feel like that is very powerful tool with passive income is investments. Now, I'm not exactly talking about the stock market, but you could be savvy enough. You could invest in stocks or companies and things like that. But I'm talking about real estate. Real estate is an excellent area of a passive investment strategy. And one of the ways to start considering this passive income strategy with real estate is to become a homeowner. If you are not ready a homeowner, meaning you're renting a place, that is a wonderful first way to start. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the barriers to entry. So as I talk about home ownership, that is a fantastic way to get engaged in real estate investing. And I'm going to tell you a story. So the best way to start to get investing in real estate and to get become a homeowner all by yourself is to first ask a lot of questions. I want you to evaluate, I want you to understand, first and foremost, what can you afford? And you might think, well, I know how much rent I can afford. That's an excellent starting place. Finding out what your budget allows based on your current income or any extra income you might have, what makes sense from you to invest in a property. A lot of times banks and credit unions will offer phenomenal first-time home buyer loan programs, which means you might not have to put any money down or a little money down, but ask those questions and find out what makes sense for you. Maybe you were a homeowner in the past and this isn't your first home. You're selling one to get something different. But I always love to play what I call the mortgage game, because as a homeowner, even though that's your primary place of residence, you are eligible for some pretty good rates and terms, again, depending on your income, depending on your credit, depending on your area of the country. But everyone has to live somewhere. And so if you have an opportunity to purchase the dwelling, which you are going to reside as a primary residence, it's a wonderful way to get started. Now, here's for that personal story. And this is why I love home mortgages. And it was a great way to get me thinking about investing in real estate to create passive income for myself and my family. So a number of years ago, we were sitting in our kitchen, and our kitchen faces the back of our house. So we overlook our backyard. And it's our breakfast nook area of our house. And I was sitting there and I was looking outside, and I am not somebody that loves to do lawn work or, plant gardens or make landscaping look pretty. I like looking at it, but that's about it. So I was looking outside and I thought, we don't have the best backyard. I mean, we have a swing set for the kids and, we'll go toss the ball around and stuff like that. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to have a pool? A family pool with a patio and maybe a barbecue grill and a beautiful, luxurious outdoor area. And the first thing I did is, because I like to ask questions that I don't know the answer to, how much would that cost? I had no idea what it would cost to put a pool in, an in-ground pool in our yard with the beautiful patio and the landscaping and all the pretty things. In fact, I looked through some magazines, yes, magazines, and I tore out some pictures of some luxurious looking backyard oasis. And I kind of squirreled them away thinking, gosh, someday I would love to have this. And that's where manifesting really helped me out with this. So I started doing some research. Well, first I said that to my husband. He's like, I would love to have a pool. I don't know what that means either. So we started reaching out. We reached out to some area pool companies. We interviewed a bunch of them. And I said, I don't know if this pool is going to cost me $10,000 or $100,000. I had no idea. Well, it was somewhere in the middle for us. So after we had some great conversations, learned what we didn't know, learned, what it meant to put in the pool, I said, that was wonderful research. We are not in a financial position right now to put the pool in. We didn't have the money in cash or savings, that amount, or money that we didn't want to park that way. And I thought, it's probably not the best time, but it's good to learn that information. So I put it in a folder and I saved all the information, the estimates and the conversations, and I just parked it for a minute. So fast forward about 4 years later, I was actually with a friend in a neighbor's pool and they had just put it in, and we were, having a nice time in the summer on a nice hot summer day. And for some reason, that pool conversation just popped back in my head. And I thought, I wonder if now's the time. And you might be thinking, well, you didn't have the money then. Did you save up that kind of money? As a matter of fact, I didn't. What I did is I called up my mortgage banker. And so we have our mortgage with a bank. And at the time, I had no idea what our home value was worth. And I wanted to find this out because I wanted to find out how much equity I had in the house. So what does that mean? If you have a home that you're buying or you're a homeowner, most of the time you take out a loan to buy your house because home ownership is probably one of the most expensive things you'll do in your life. So when you buy a house, you usually have to put a little bit of a down payment, and the rest you finance over a period of time, usually 15 to 30 years. So as you make monthly payments towards that loan or that mortgage, you pay that debt down over time. And the amount that you financed and you deduct the debt out, that's your equity. So let's say you bought a house that's $100,000 and you were required to put 10% down. So that's $10,000. That means you financed with your bank or credit union $90,000. So over time, every time you make a monthly payment, that $90,000 debt you have with your bank on the mortgage, it gets chipped away at little by little by little. And so over time, you'll pay it off completely if you still live in the house, or if you sell it for a profit and you'll get to pay it off then. But over time, that $90,000 debt gets shrunken and shrunken and shrunken. And the difference between the $90,000 and what you bought it for, $100,000, that amount gets bigger. So that's your equity. So equity is the difference between what your house is worth today. So not what you bought it for, but what's it worth today? What could you sell your house today? So let's say in this example, you bought the house for $100,000, but today, maybe it's 5 years later, it's worth $150,000. So let's use some just rough numbers. Let's say you took out a mortgage for $90,000, and let's say it's still at 90, just for simplicity's sake, but you could sell it on the market today for 150. And you know that because you had your house either appraised or you consulted with a licensed real estate agent and you got some market comps. So the difference between 150 and 90 is $60,000. So in this instance, you have $60,000 of equity, meaning value, in your property, in your home. And many banks and credit unions will allow you to take out a loan on that $60,000 because it's money that's already valued in the house. Now, worst case scenario, you default on that loan, whether you default, you can't pay your monthly mortgage or you can't pay that other loan, which is usually a home equity line of credit or a second mortgage on that, then basically the bank uses your house as collateral and they can take your house. I don't want that to happen. Woo! But in this instance, there are ways that you can build equity and cash within your own lifestyle just by doing the things you normally do, buying a house and using that money to invest. So back to the swimming pool idea for our backyard. So a few years later, I pulled out all the paperwork that we had talked about getting the pool with. And I thought, you know what? Maybe now is the time. So I called our bank and I said, hey, we haven't had our house reappraised. And that's something you can do. You can refinance your house to pull out equity. You can refinance it to get a lower or a better interest rate. I also didn't know what the interest rates were at the current time because we weren't shopping for a house. I wasn't in the market to buy another house. I had a current house and we were thinking, okay, what do we have to work with here? So here's the crazy thing. I didn't realize until I talked to my mortgage banker that the interest rates had gone down a full percentage point less than what we were paying. Wow, that's awesome. So I was already going to get a savings. And then I said, okay, we have this swimming pool and this backyard idea that we want to do. It's going to cost X. It's going to cost, in this $50,000, for example. And I said, how much equity do you think we have in our house? And so in talking to our mortgage banker, he's like, I think we'll probably come out here, but in order to put this in motion, we need to order an independent appraisal. So I had to pay for an independent appraisal on our house, which ran us a few $100s. We had it, we got the paperwork back, and lo and behold, I was surprised and pleasantly surprised. Our house appraised for way more than what we owed on it, which is pretty cool. So when I did the math, we refinanced the house. We dropped the interest rate a full percentage point. So over the life of the loan for the entire property, I was saving money on interest. We pulled out the money to put in the pool and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, yes, I had to add more years onto the term of my mortgage, but my monthly payment dropped by $400 a month. $400 a month. So I lowered my interest rate. I refinanced my house. So I kept the same amount on the mortgage, but I pulled out extra $50,000 for the swimming pool. I extended the term by just a few years and I dropped my monthly payment by $400. And so I asked our mortgage banker, I said, okay, let me understand this straight again. In essence, I am making $400 more per month by putting in the pool. And he says, yeah, you're extending your term. So in the long run, I'll pay, some interest and a little bit longer, but I could pay it off. That's another conversation. But that made me feel good about utilizing equity for that purpose. And at the same time, by putting a pool in and elevating our landscaping and our property as a whole, it actually increased the value of my property even more. So someday when we decide to sell, we actually have made an investment in the real estate. So your home can very easily be, one, the most expensive thing you'll ever buy in your life. So don't let that scare you. But it's a dwelling. It's a place for you to live and raise your family and make memories. But more importantly, it is a way to build wealth. Now, I use the example of talking to my mortgage banker about refinancing my house and pulling out that equity to invest in a pool for our family. But you could very easily identify an investment property. This could be a little duplex, a little rental property, a little office property. The name of the game here is identify something that can bring value. And a way to do that when you get a loan for it, or maybe it's less expensive enough that you have enough equity in your primary home that you can pull out that equity and the interest rate is reasonable. You can go buy something else with it, and that other property can very easily make you money. I own investment properties myself, and every time I evaluate what's of value to me, I want to understand how much money do I have to put in to get started, meaning what type of down payment am I going to have to either come out of pocket, meaning pull from my own savings account or pull from my equity of other properties or not, and how much money is it going to bring me on a monthly and annual basis. And then the other thing I always want to consider is there any deferred maintenance? When I buy the property, does it need to be renovated? Does it need a new roof? Does it need something? Is it vacant? Do I need to go find the tenants that are going to pay me the rent? So these are all things that factor into owning investment property. But like I said before, this investment property that creates passive income for you or a savings in your life, I have to put the work in up front. So just like my swimming pool example, I put the work in years before we actually pulled the trigger and put the pool in. I wanted to understand all of the metrics. I wanted to understand how much it was going to cost, the time it was going to take, what was the expectation on how I would pay for it and the upkeep and all that kind of stuff. I needed to understand that. And then I kept asking questions. Where was I going to get the money? What was the rate of return I would have to spend? And what would that mean for our financial lives? So it's always a great idea to ask questions. I'm a firm believer at asking questions, even ask the dumb ones, but ask them of people that you feel comfortable will give you straight answers. And if you have some questions about how to do this, it's a great way to get a hold of me, whether you're on YouTube or any of the podcasting platforms. My Instagram handle is at Kirsten Flory, same on YouTube. Shoot me a message, ask a question. I think wealth building is a very powerful tool to not only give us choices, but to allow us to have extra funds within our life, whether we're doing it to live, we're doing it to help others, and we're doing it to instill creativity within our communities. Wealth building is a pretty powerful thing. And I hope these 3 tools today that I covered, one, understanding how to diversify your income through your main income, your long-term retirement savings, and your passive income. Number 2, how do you create that passive income, whether you have a special skill or talent, whether you can create something, whether you can sell something online, a virtual product. And the third one that we talked more in depth is about how do you get into real estate investment? And the barriers to entry, starting small and starting with things that you probably already need, like a home to live in. If you're not already a homeowner, it's a great way to get started building your wealth. And if you are a homeowner, taking a deeper dive into understanding what's the best mortgage rate you are able to apply for and get. How much equity do you have in your house and what that all means? What costs are going to be coming your way that will require you to either do renovations or upkeep and maintenance, and how you can create income coming into your life, putting in the work on the front end and getting the rewards on the back end. Thanks for joining us today. As always, I love talking about how to create success for you, more profits, and wealth building strategies.